Yes, thanks so much for coming on, man. This is my first vision selling interview, and I'm honored that you're my first guest. Thanks for
Let's
being
do it,
on here.
Zach. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, man. What inspired this? Number one, I love what you're doing, like with your channel and all that. And I was honored to be a guest on your channel, which was awesome. But I recently went to an immersion called Arise by Alluviance, and they talked about what is a vision. And I always had a lot of anxiety about like what is a vision, right? And I wanted to say, and I learned from this immersion that the purpose of a vision is not so that you actually achieve it, it's who it makes you today, right? So you think of who are those stud sales leaders, those stud sales reps out there, what characteristics do they embody, and like who is myself 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, and what characteristics does that person embody, and like why can't I just be that person today? So that was kind of the goal of vision selling.
Yes.
During an interview process of one of mine, they actually talked about, okay, this is an enterprise role and you have kind of SMB experience. So I want you to go out and interview 5 sales studs out there and report back to us what you learned. Right. So I thought that would be a really cool forum for me to go out and say, all right, I want to bring on some awesome sales studs onto this YouTube channel, ask some questions, try to get the audience a little bit of golden nuggets of how you've done so well in your career. So maybe we start there as like, why did you choose sales, and like what got you into sales, and how's it been going so far?
Yeah, Zach, I'm really flattered that you're calling me a sales stud. You definitely are yourself as someone who's succeeded as an individual contributor at Oracle and management and founded your own sales related company, applying generative AI to sales. That's amazing. So
Thank you
you're a
so
total
much.
stud, and it's great to be a stud with you. I realized in college, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but I knew 2 things. I loved people and I wanted to be great. And one of my mentors at Georgetown, where I went to in DC, said, Chris, you could become best friends with any stranger. And that's partly because I just freaking love people. So that was a driver for me to think about, hey, in sales, I can literally get paid to build relationships, one with my teammates, but 2, of course, with customers as we try and drive top line revenue for the company. And 2, I mentioned I wanted to be great, whatever that meant. And part of wanting to be great, honestly, came from the fact that maybe deep down, this is a common story a lot of us tell ourselves, I didn't think I was good enough. But it's funny how that trauma can be our competitive advantage and our call to purpose. And I think that's something in me that wanted to prove myself that I was enough, drove me to want to be great. And sales was a place where I could really brush up against the edge of who I was and pick up the phone and cold call strangers and stretch myself to expand my comfort zone and ultimately reach my potential. And my YouTube channel that I have now is all about using tech sales as a vehicle for personal transformation. And so when I interviewed with Rashonda Grimes, who is the hiring manager at Oracle, and they came to the Georgetown campus, and I just knew Oracle was a great company. You were there. It's a great launch pad to start your tech sales career. I told her, I want to be great. And she said, I tell my daughter that every morning. So it's like the synergies were awesome and it felt serendipitous. And little did I know that shaking hands with Rashonda would shake up my future career. And what I will tell you in hindsight, 9 years in the industry, at Oracle, then Google Cloud, both for about 3 years. Google was where I got into field sales at 26, which we can dig more into that transition from inside to field later on. And now as the second founding US seller at a global startup that's trying to IPO in the next few years, the things I've realized is this career really is amazing in every sense. I've met awesome people, including some of my best friends, and I've met customers who are also just inspiring. And recently I was golfing with a CTO and riding in the back of his Aston Martin with wind hitting my face. He's got like 14 cars. I mean, you get to build personal relationships with these types of people. And the network I've built is such a security net, and so many opportunities and fruit come from it. And those opportunities are unpredictable. We talk about a downturn, a tough economic climate and layoffs, but when you build your network, it really is an asset to reduce that, risk, and something you can lean on. I also found that after a year at Oracle, after getting promoted from SDR to AE, I was making 6 figures and I didn't know what to do with myself, as I forget if I was 23. And I was buying my whole team coffees I think it was called, I forget the name, the coffee spot, that's a moot point, but the coffee was so strong. It was incredible. And I'm buying the whole team coffees. I didn't know what to do with myself. And in the course of 9 years that I've been in the industry, I've tripled my base salary alone. And that's not factoring commission and, equities, RSUs when you're at Google, and the pre-IPO equity that I negotiated at my startup. And hopefully it goes from fairy dust to a transformational wealth event if we go public. So the point is, financial freedom, it's a thing in tech sales. And that's just a tool to really create the life you want. And the final thing that I've seen, just to tie a bow on, what inspired me to get into tech sales and go down this path, is that I have grown a lot personally. I've had to lean into discomfort, and I struggled a lot with anxiety, and I didn't feel like the most confident person, although I could turn it on at the right times. And I think just by getting out there and making cold calls and stretching myself, I've become more confident. And being in sales, especially at companies like Google Cloud, led me to get into leadership development programs like Landmark and PSI seminars. Guys, check those out. They're amazing. That really expanded my thinking, and I didn't even foresee that. And here we are now on a podcast. I've got a YouTube channel. Anyways, back over to you, but hopefully that gives you more than enough detail on why I got into this path and why I love it.
Yeah, man. Very similar path. We both kind of went in the field 25, 26. We got a lot of my point of this channel is really for a lot of those junior sellers that are looking to take that big leap. What's tough is, as a very junior AE and trying to go into the field, you're oftentimes on a team with people that are much older than you, 30s, 40s, maybe even 50s, right? So how did you prepare for success in transitioning from inside sales to field, and how did you actually land that first gig?
Yeah, it's totally normal to feel a little bit of imposter syndrome when you are going to make the leap and do make the leap, and that's okay. And you still show up anyways, and you really just fake it till you become it at the end of the day. And you will learn through doing and getting thrown in the fire. However, a couple thoughts, and I think this might partially answer your question, or at least offer an insight on my transition to get in the field sales at Google Cloud at 26. I really focused when I was in a pod with a field sales rep at Google Cloud on bringing value to him by actually becoming an incredible prospector and opening up opportunities with OfferUp and these huge accounts that he wanted to get into, these greenfield customers on the competition. And I brought value to him. And even though, when you move up into a field sales role, it really is closing strategic deals. It's kind of counterintuitive, but by focusing on bringing value through prospecting and hunting and opening up these amazing opportunities for my field seller, I also got the opportunity to shadow those deals. And he really became my champion and was willing to take me under his wing and not just have me shadow the deals to learn in real time and fly out to see OfferUp in Seattle in person, but also to take the time to have coffee with me and walk me through all the nuances of how he closed the deal and the roadblocks that he ran into and the contract process and everything that I needed to know that I didn't have experience with. And so I earned that opportunity because of the value I brought. So at a high level, you're going to learn by pursuing mentorships with these field sellers, maybe even field sales managers, people further down the path and the place that you want to be. And you're going to ask all the questions you can, be curious, take notes, and be able to run those deals, even if you source them but didn't close them, or you didn't even source them, as if it was your own, and speak to it as if you closed it. And that is huge. And you can open up that trust and that relationship where they will actually invest in you to teach you those things by bringing value through prospecting. Because I wasn't a closing role as an inside seller, and I closed my own deals that were a little more transactional and not as big as in the field. But hopefully that makes sense. And I that was a winning strategy for me.
Yeah. Very similar paths, man. I love the mentorship, actually finding someone that is going to put some time into helping your growth, like actually seeing it from, okay, we prospected, you found an opportunity. A lot of times, if you have a field counterpart, they might just say, thanks, see ya. But it's very cool that they were kind of giving you some insight into like, what's going on behind the scenes here. This is what we're thinking from a negotiation strategy. let me show you how we're going to close this thing. That's awesome.
And here's the key. It's like some might actually be the type of people that want to lift others up. They're natural leaders and mentors, and they just want to see others succeed. But even if they're not, it's by bringing that value, understanding where they need help. Do they need help getting into a certain greenfield account that's high potential, and rolling up your sleeves and doing the dirty work. And so that you're in a place where the law of reciprocity kicks in, and they're like, you know what, I will give you time, and I will walk you through these details. And I just want to say that at a high level, you need to hit your numbers, of course, it's table stakes in order to be promoted. But I found that I got a field role over someone who closed a $50 million deal that was just a beast because of how I networked. And I proactively built a relationship with the field sales manager that I ended up working for. Now, it helped that I was an inside seller aligning to him, but I brought value to him because I got him meetings when he was in town in San Francisco, or I'm just, that was one trip, or in Seattle. And I brought value to him, and he saw that I closed these deals and brought so much to his team. And then I spent time in person with him out in Seattle at customer events. And, what do you know? I mentioned those personal growth seminars, like Landmark and Size seminars. Well, my manager at Google actually went through those himself, and boom, you have a really personal connection. You think similarly, the rest is history.
Yeah. No, that's classic. Like, sure, you got to hit your number. You gotta do the fundamentals, but it's those things that above and beyond creating good relationships. That's what's ultimately going to push you into that next role. So that's awesome.
Amen.
So like you talked about the fundamentals, but like what character traits do you see in the best sellers? And like, if you could go back and talk to Chris 10 years ago, what type of character traits would you tell him to lean into and try to develop a little bit?
Be courageous. Get on the phone sooner, because once you start, you can actually improve. I think, and maybe I'm thinking of an SDR, right? But if you get on the phone sooner, you can actually get feedback from actual prospects. Maybe you don't want to talk to the highest potential prospects, but you also develop courage and confidence through what I call rejection therapy. The more you're rejected, and this could even apply to, candidly, in my dating life improved through sales. And I developed an ability, not that I do this all the time because it's superficial, to go up to a stranger and say, start a conversation. But I went through a period of growth there. It's kind of funny to say, and I got rejected a lot, but then you become unstoppable. So it's like, become unstoppable by taking action, taking your lumps, but then learning what works. And just not waiting, because I'm an analytical guy by nature, and I still am, but I tell future Chris, don't overanalyze. Like, you could prepare, which preparation is huge, but to talk to a company about their, this is a real world situation, DataV product solution. And I had a call, so it's a real world context, with a CEO. And I prepared my presentation based on DataV and where they were going in the market, maybe opportunities to grow revenue and upsell and ultimately grow that business. And the first thing he says on the call is, we're retiring DataV and we're moving from a product company to a services company. It was all out the window. So that overanalysis, one, it led me to work more slowly, and two, it's not always relevant. And that leads me to a quality that I think is critically important, is rather than assuming you know it all, where you cut off your potential, just focus on being curious. I like to think I'm Curious Chris, which is kind of cheesy, but being curious is what matters in those situations where you end up talking with a CEO that, we're changing our from a product company to a services company, and being able to ask the right questions and obviously probe into pain and understand an individual's KPIs and their business objectives and their technical state. And being curious and asking those questions will inform the deal and how you engage. And another thing I wanted to double down on is the importance of empathy. Like, the top hostage negotiators in the world are able to influence these people that honestly are very emotionally unstable. And let's be real, a lot of all humans are emotional. We buy emotionally, and we can all be a little unstable and unpredictable. But when you show a thoughtfulness that you're willing to put yourself in the customer's shoes, and that you also speak with other CTOs like them, and you see certain challenges and outcomes they're driving towards, and you've produced results to help them achieve those outcomes or solve certain challenges, that builds trust, and it shows you're really, you're other oriented, and that makes a huge difference. So those are just a few. I could go on and on, man. And okay, one more. Okay, one more.
Okay, one more.
I call it pleasant persistence. I think with enough persistence, the impossible becomes possible. I know it. I've seen it in sales and in my life. Vinod Khosla, who is the CEO of Sun Microsystems, he's one of the wealthiest people in the world. He spoke at a talk at Stanford to MBA students, and he said that with enough persistence, the impossible becomes possible. People take no too easily. And I've seen deals that even recently, a month ago, I had 2 deals I lost to the competition here at Bespin that I ended up keeping it warm, and I lost gracefully, and I kept in touch, and I won both deals for the long term and strategic, partnership. So being able to be pleasantly persistent and have a long-term perspective, and you put a note, you lost the deal, but follow up in the future, long-term, it's going to lead to a big payday and success will be guaranteed.
Awesome. So you get this field role at 26.
Yeah.
I'd be curious. A lot of the lessons you learn could be even from a lost deal, like you said, but like maybe even you close your first big deal. What's a good lesson you learn that others can learn from you here and not have to go through it themselves?
Yeah, I think, there was a deal at like a machine learning opportunity with the life sciences company that was trying to, they're doing drug discovery, researching, molecules and figuring out how to concoct the best drugs. That sounds funny. But actually tackling things like cancer. And I had an issue. I was stuck at the low levels. And I guess the lesson, without even telling the story, is to start at the top if you can. There's so much value in collecting information at the bottom, but you can sometimes get caught at a certain level, and it can become difficult to get to the executive level. And this was at a big enterprise, right? But I started out with an engineer, and we built the use case, and he was all about the Google Cloud products. But then I got to his director, and we had a good conversation. But what I did is, because here's the challenge with when you're not starting at the top, you just have to be very careful of egos and how things reflect on like the middle managers or directors you're working with. And I decided I want to escalate for executive alignment with our head of sales, and it's time to get this deal really moving. And what I didn't think about is how it would come across to the director. And I emailed the CIO, and then I guess the director hadn't fully communicated what was going on, or wasn't prepared to answer questions the CIO had, and it made him look bad. And he got so upset, and I basically lost the deal. Now, and Microsoft won it. They came back to me, and I won another deal in the future. So again, that persistence and never giving up. But what I realized is, a lesson is I wanted to people please and be so effusive, but I acknowledged that, I guess I was in the wrong. Now, my sales manager might say, hey, you good? You're trying to escalate and elevate the conversation. But I could have been more empathetic of how I engaged with this director and thought about how it might have made him look. And I tried to acknowledge that I understood that. And rather than push, I just let it go. And sometimes, as another lesson, it's strategic to not be too pushy and just let things go and give the customer space. I've even seen it with deals that I wanted to check in one more time, but I just checked in and they needed space and the deal came through. So I think that was another lesson too. And so in a perfect world, you start at the top, you're the CEO, CTO, or whoever, like CMO if you're selling MarTech. And when you come from the top down, you give them the idea, they then send you to the technical team and the directives coming from there, and you don't have that issue. But if you, do start at a middle level with an end user or middle management, you just have to be very mindful that you could bottleneck yourself. And if you do trying to escalate to, executive alignment, empowering them as a champion and working through them versus trying to go one off, because that could have a consequence. And when you make mistakes, show that you understand that you are apologetic, but also don't be too effusive and give the customer space to come back.
Yeah. Yeah. I did a video on this called Influence Maps. And funny enough, one of my 5 interviews that I did during that interview process was all about the influence map. Because sure, when you're selling to SMB, you might be talking to the decision maker immediately. But when you're selling to a 5 billion plus company, there could be 30 plus people, maybe 50 plus people that are involved in a decision-making process. So building that influence map of who's the champion and the coach and the influencer and all that stuff, that certainly is really helpful. But I loved your perspective on being empathetic and not making your champion or your coach look bad. So like kind of more of a collaborative approach with them on how to get the message up is huge.
exactly right. And I wanted to throw in one more example that actually ties into your company, Sift AI, and how it can be helpful to people.
Wow, thanks.
So my biggest deal at Google Cloud was OfferUp. It was a $10 million commitment, and it started with a cold call. And I would say cold calling is dead, but calling isn't. Cold calling is when you call and you literally have no reason for calling. The phone is the most powerful tool. It's like spear phishing. It's messy and it's sloppy sometimes, but you're more likely to walk away with something. Where an email, you cast out a lure and bob it, and the follow-up seems shiny and attractive and personalized and value-driven, but the customer may never respond to your email and you don't know why. And so I decided to go spear phishing, and my first cold call at Google Cloud was to OfferUp. And again, it led to a huge deal that was a landmark for me in my career, and that actually I helped use to get promoted to field sales at 26. But here's the thing, like, I didn't just pick up the phone. I put in a lot of preparation, and I did what's called value matching, which is what Sift AI helps with and helps reduce the time involved in being able to value match, so that you pick up the phone and have a reason for calling that earns you a seat at the table and the opportunity to have a conversation. I knew OfferUp was on AWS and I was going to get that objection. So I looked at the data at Google Cloud that we'd collected within the digital native software as a service, or like cloud-based company segment. It's like almost like basically enterprise, but for like SaaS companies, or in the case of OfferUp, they're an e-commerce platform. They do a lot with data, right? And they're all like on the cloud. And so I looked up the top 6 reasons. We did a great study internally on why customers move from AWS to Google Cloud. And a couple of them were, there were strategic ways we approached data analytics that was different. I won't get in the weeds. Also, companies who wanted to globally expand. We did it a little different, and it tied into how the technology was designed, and it made an impact on the business. So I knew, where are we differentiated? And then I looked at OfferUp and the latest news, and what do you know? They are doing a lot with data. They're a data platform, honestly. They need to understand their users. They need to be able to even look with AI at people selling tigers and doing these sketchy things. And so data is critical. It's a backbone of their company. And they also were announcing global expansion plans. So I value matched. I took a couple differentiators based on our data points with proof points, customer studies to back it up. For global expansion, I had Home Depot in mind and a great quote from the executive. And for data, I had someone else, I forget. And I matched that up with their data company and the data initiatives, and they wanted to expand globally. And that was what I needed to pick up the phone and call Arian. And Arian was the CTO at the time. Arian, hey, my name's Chris calling from Google Cloud. I realize I'm interrupting your day. So before I go any further, do you have 20 seconds for me to tell you why I'm calling? I could have said, hey, Arian, it's Chris calling from Google Cloud. Can I steal a minute? Same thing. You acknowledge the interruption and you earn an opportunity to actually say why you're calling. And I actually decided this is a key nugget too, even though I had the value matching in the back pocket of how we're different and why it's relevant to their goals, I did something calling give to get. I offered value. Executives love experiences, networking, ideas. And I was going to offer him, I chose to focus on $1,000 plus tickets to Google Cloud Next, where he could connect with other executives. He could learn from top experts and just have a great experience. You get to drink and have a little fun too. And so he shut that down and said, we're all on AWS. I knew it was coming. And that's where the value matching came in. Right. That's where I was able to say, well, hey, I noticed you're trying to expand globally. And I don't know if you realize, but we have a pretty differentiated approach due to the way the network's set up, and enough to not talk his ear off, but give him something concrete. And, the CIO of Home Depot actually said he was amazed. It was like lighting up data centers around the world, the way Google seamlessly approaches global expansion. And it can have an impact if things aren't set up well, like there's lost revenue, unhappy customers. I just had a point, it was enough for him to say, you know what? All right, I'm about to move to the board. There's a new CTO coming in 3 months, follow up then. And I did that. So I actually didn't get the meeting right away. And I said, congrats, Arian suggested we connected. And so I had a warm context, and I eventually got the meeting with Amish Palasia, who is the new CTO. He came from Atom Tickets, which I used to use to book movies. And so I flattered him. It was personal. It was his baby. And so that's obviously a nugget. When you engage with people, make it warm through warm connections. And if you use their product, oh my gosh, flatter them. And it took a while, but the deal closed a year later, and we had some bumps along the way. They had a new infrastructure guy come in. We had a partner that had to be kicked out, but that's a part of the game. The best things take time. And that's how that happened. And I'd be curious to hear a little bit about Sift AI real quick, give you a little spotlight, because my understanding is that research process to match the value of our company and the drivers of another company and the key compelling events, that can be greatly reduced so that we can pretty quickly just go out and take our ammo and produce the results that lead to a $10 million deal. Tell us real quick.
Chris, I appreciate the chance for me to plug Sift.
Yeah.
First off, just wanted to say the key theme I got there was persistence, and sure that CTO was moving on to the board, but you were persistent and stayed in touch. So, and then you were creative with things that person might care about, from like even a gift giving, thoughtful gift giving can really get you in the door. So kudos to you on that deal. You mentioned value matching. Sift AI, what we're trying to do is automate a lot of the manual processes that a seller goes through in that preparation and finding value matches or companies or prospects that are showing symptoms of problems that you can solve. So then you can ultimately gather all this information and intel and approach them with a perspective on how you can add value to some of the challenges that they're facing. That's in essence what we think is value selling. And we're trying to really improve a lot of those manual processes by having a single end-to-end experience that's really helping that seller, so they don't have to go into like 4 different data applications and keep track of their Excel spreadsheets and Google accounts and have Google alerts and look at 10Ks. We wanted to make that experience a lot more simplified. So I appreciate the quick plug of Sift. And what we're doing to try to help value selling efforts, and some really exciting stuff ahead, which is cool.
I'm definitely a fan.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you coming on, man. How can people find you? What is like, I know you've got a YouTube channel, but like, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, feel free to connect on LinkedIn. I always love to connect with good people and have conversations. You never know where it could go. I have a YouTube channel, Chris Bussing. It's my name. And the first thing you'll see is a tech sales rap video. My name's Chris Bussing and tech sales is bussin'. What I didn't realize is my name Bussing is a variation of this slang term that means amazing. And I hope, the video makes you laugh at least once. It was goofy. It was fun. And there's an appearance from my puppy as a special guest. I have a website, chrisbussing.com as well. And a lot of it is geared towards helping people maximize their path in tech sales, not just developing skills and making a lot of money, but also growing as a person. And there's a heavy personal growth component. And I'm going to have a curriculum coming out called Tech Sales Accelerator. It's a little more geared towards someone who's trying to start their career in tech sales as an SDR and get promoted to AE. But there's a lot of great prospecting concepts. I think the AEs and even the leaders and the founders like you that can prospect have a competitive advantage. So those are some of the places that you can get plugged in and connected. And the final plug is that on my interview channel, I have great guests like Zach, and I've got a few people coming, like famous author John Gordon of the Energy Bus, that is on, like, he's coached the Rams to a Super Bowl, the Dodgers to a World Series. I've got a guy, Delator and McNeil. He makes $1 million a year as a professional speaker. He's on CNBC. And so I'm starting to get some really good guests that are, maybe we talk tech sales, but some of these are just like, how do you live an amazing life? And that's what I'm all about. So check out those. They're usually on Wednesdays in the evening.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thanks so much for joining us here on our first interview of Vision Selling Interviews. More to come. Please subscribe to this channel, and I'm gonna start bringing in as many sales studs as I can, both from sales development leaders to VP of sales to just the top sales reps out there, so we can start gathering some golden nuggets and help individuals that are interested in progressing their sales career, kind of take that to the next level. So Chris, I really appreciate it.
I'm subscribed, guys. Do the same. There's going to be some great guests, and Zach is the man. He's actually doing the thing himself. So Zach, thanks for having me, and to your guys' success in tech sales and in life. Looking forward to connecting at some point.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Cheers.